Well, good morning. How are you all today? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I wanted to make sure that I'm plugged up right because I hate to have to do these things again. Usually, if it doesn't work out the first time, I say, that's all right. I go on to other things. I want to talk today about war, the draft, and the danger of false heroes, because we're potentially dealing with the possibility of war. We're potentially dealing with the possibility of a draft. I've heard people say it's not going to happen. I believe anything can happen. And then we're also dealing with what I consider to be the ramifications or the dangers of false heroes. So I'm going to try to cover all that fairly succinctly, see if I can. War, it's coming. They want it. I'm not going to rehash all this, because we've done it time and time again. If you see what we're involved in Ukraine and in the Middle East, they want the war, and when they want a war, they get it. They want it for a couple of reasons, the same reasons that they want all other wars, and that is to make money. The rich make money off of it. They send the everybody else's kids off to fight them, and they sit back and make money. And secondly, to cover all the ills that they've created in society and the economy and all that, and really the only way out of it is war. So I think it's almost inevitable that we're going to be involved in war. My grandfather fought in World War I because for money, not his money, but for the money of the money folks. For a war that never should have happened. My father fought in World War II in Europe for another war that never should have happened, so that the money people could get more money. I escaped. I almost said dodged. I didn't dodge. They missed me in the draft in 1972 for Vietnam, and I was never sorry that they missed me. Never had a desire, to be honest, and I'll say this right up front, never had a desire to join the military. I've had people ask me, how come you didn't join the military? Maybe I'll do one on that. A whole lot of reasons, actually. Maybe I'll just do that on Patreon. But I do want to say I've had a lot of friends who were in the military. A lot of them retired from the military. A lot of them had, like all you guys, I'm sure would say, because all of my friends have told me, well, there was a lot of good and there was some bad, right? I always had it never appealed to me. I'll tell that story over on Patreon because there's some funny stuff to that. I went law enforcement instead. I wanted the action, but I wanted to be able to sleep in my own bed at night and be part of the community, actually. But we're getting into a war. Now, the question that I have is whether an internal war is going to start before they get us involved in the external war. And when you put those two together, it is complex. There's a lot going on there. I don't think I'll get into that on this one. That just occurred to me. Maybe I ought to make a separate one on that. But I think there's a very, very real possibility of an internal war starting this summer, sometime around or before the Democrat convention. And if that kicks off, that's going to be unlike. Potentially, let me put it this way: it could potentially be unlike anything we've seen since that war of the 1860s. And if that happens, then I think that takes our eyes and our minds off of those external wars completely. Maybe, who knows? I mean, the way these evil, corrupt people in Washington think, you can't guess what they're going to do next for the most part. But sometimes we can. So, however, if it doesn't kick off here, I think we're headed there. At least probably ramping up. I don't know. It's hard to say before or after the elections. Doesn't matter. We're headed there. Now, if we get into that kind of war, there's been people talking about the draft for forever. That the guy England is already talking about reinstituting their draft. And what's that old Roger Miller song? I won't try to remember it. It just popped into my head. And they're talking about drafting women. And there are those who say, well, if they're going to draft the guys, they ought to draft the girls too. Well, I think that's a ridiculous argument. You should only draft men when you need men to defend the homeland. There should not be a draft for any other reason. That's my position on the draft. If they'd caught me up in their little draft net in '72, I would have gone. Wouldn't have liked it. Actually, at that point, because you're 19 and you're stupid, I remember a lot of my friends joined because we thought that going to Vietnam would be kind of fun, something to do. Well, I got older and looked back and was glad that I hadn't. But the only reason for a draft is to defend the homeland. There's no other reason. To draft people, pull them out of their lives and families and all that, to fight rich man's war in other countries. Because this idea that we fight them over there so we don't fight them here is a BS argument that has been used by the politicians and generals, which are politicians, who are politicians, forever. Okay. Well, if they want to come here, fine. Then let's fight them here. But to have a draft, I think a draft is immoral because it implies state ownership of the individual. Simple as that. And I know there will be people who says, but you got to step up and do your part. And you know what? What one person thinks is somebody's part is maybe not what that other person thinks. Everybody should do what they think is their part, okay? And I get a big kick out of these people who say, well, I'm going to do this, so you ought to as well. Really? Did your mama ever say, hey, if everybody else jumped off a building with you? Same kind of thing. Everybody has a different idea about that. It wasn't, I'll go back to when I missed it, the reason that I wasn't sorry is because at that time, I started to understand how corrupt this government, our government, is. The hippies, they were worthless in a lot of ways, but they had that one right. They saw the corruption of the Vietnam War. And people looking back at it agree with that now. They understand it. But those people, hippies, they caught a lot of grief over that stuff. And I'm not standing up for the Abby Hoffmans and the Weather Underground and Angela Davis. I'm not standing up for those people. What I'm saying is that too many people were blinded by an uninformed patriotism, thinking that young people ought to go over there and fight and die or otherwise get screwed up for a worthless, meaningless war that only enriched the rich. Okay? So that's my position on the draft is it's immoral if it's really needed to defend the country. You won't need a draft. Okay, people will step up and say, hey, the commies are invading. Well, they're already here now. Half of them are running our government. But whoever is invading, we're going to have to rise up, and we will fight. Then you're going to get the ones who really will fight, and not somebody who's doesn't want to be there, right? Okay. So that's it. A draft implies, as does, and I'll add this in here too, this idea of a required national service. When I was younger, I believed in that. When I was in law enforcement, I said, yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm doing my part, and other people should have to do that. Why? Why shouldn't other people be able to do what they want to do in life? Okay, we have plenty of if you want a job to attract people, make the job attractive, right? There's plenty of people in law enforcement. If you want more people in the fire service, make it attractive to get people in there. If you want more people driving ambulances or whatever. Make it attractive, make it pay well, but don't force people to do things, because, as I said, it implies a state ownership of the person. And I'll get people that argue, and no, it doesn't. It's just the right thing to do. Bull. Okay. If I have to show up somewhere, get on a bus, go down to a place away from my home for however long, right? If somebody can tell me when to get up, when to take a shower, when to brush my teeth, when to go to the bathroom, when to eat, go out and run all over the place, and all this for a purpose that I don't even understand at 19 years old, and then be sent off to kill people I don't know who never did anything to me, or be killed or screwed up for the rest of my life. You tell me how that's not slavery. You tell me how that's not state ownership. It is, just in case anybody's confused about that, and I'm not supportive of that. I've told my kids, because of the corruption of this government, and trust me, I love America. I am what you might call a patriot. The term patriot is so often misused. Who was it that said patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel? I bet Link will know. Link, you know who said that. But in some cases, it's true. Now, I love America. I love what America stood for, was based on, what many people still believe in. I do not believe in corruption that is currently driving this country. And to do so, to support corruption, to support immorality, is immoral. And so I take my stand on that and against that. I've told my kids they will not be joining the military. Not this military, not the way it is now. I don't know. If the good Lord turns it into something better, then we'll see, but not now. And, you all can have your own opinions on that. Now, let me talk about the danger of false heroes. And this folds into this stuff about national service. Some of you may be familiar with some of the things that have been going on in the special operations community, to where some SEALs have been called out for, shall we say, living on fabrications. How about making money from lies? That would be a better place to put it. And if you're not familiar with that, I've mentioned it a few times. If you're not familiar with that, there are a couple of websites, or not websites, well, maybe they have websites too, but a couple of YouTube channels that I would suggest you check out. One was, what is it called? And I've just recently come across these, and I should say that I've been feeling the way that they are expressing for some years. I'll say right off, I'll say something here. Now, I'm an old police investigator. I make my living at looking at a guy and saying, is this guy legit? Is this guy not? Is he lying? What's the deal here? And Marcus Luttrell, lone survivor. Well, maybe back up. Let me back up, and then I'll circle back. 2 YouTube channels I would suggest you check out. The Anti-Hero Podcast is put out, I forget their names, by one ex-Delta guy and a street cop. And they have been looking into the truth or falsehoods of some of these stories that have been thrust out into the public. One being Marcus Luttrell, lone survivor. Another being Rob O'Neill, the guy that always claimed, and I've always said this, I never believed he killed bin Laden, but he went out and said he did. He made a lot of money off of this. Luttrell made a lot of money off of lone survivor, and there's things, as they develop, they have been able to develop the evidence. These things did not happen if they have been portrayed. So Rob O'Neill, Marcus Luttrell, who's the other guy? There's another SEAL out, or Chris Kyle, and to an extent Jocko Willink. Okay. I will just say this, and I can see somebody tapping on their keyboard now. How dare you call out a national hero? Hey, well, I have a right to have an opinion on any damn thing I want to, and I base my opinion on what I've been able to glean and discover as evidence. It's evidentiary. I didn't swallow whole just what somebody came out and said. When I saw these guys talking, I went, nah, I'm not going for all that. I think there's something more behind that. Well, this anti-hero podcast has really delved into this in the background and brought out a lot of truths, as has another one, and I don't know the guy's name. These aren't channels that I watch a lot. Green Beret Chronicles. I had a lot of buddies that were in Special Forces, and so I tell you what, I have a lot of respect for Special Forces guys. I won't compare them to others. I'll just say that I have respect for the SF guys. So Green Beret Chronicles also got into investigating these situations. I would suggest you watch those, because you are going to hear things that you have not heard before, and you will probably arrive at the same conclusion I did, that these guys have been making a lot of money off of lies. Simple as that. Some guy will come on here now and say, how dare you say things like this? You weren't in the military. To which I will say, you know what? That's part of the problem of what's going on. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get to this when I talk about another, and I'll start with that. I'll throw this in. I saw another YouTube yesterday by a former SEAL. It's not a channel that I watch. It's not a channel that I particularly like. Now, I won't say what channel it is, because I'm not slamming anybody. I'm gonna describe the situation, and then I'm gonna explain what I think the danger of these false heroes is. You know, everybody makes a big deal out of stolen valor. You know, if somebody said they were a SEAL or a Medal of Honor, whatever like this, everybody gets all upset. But then they don't seem to be upset with these guys, who have made millions of dollars on fake stories. And in some cases, you look up, you do some research on that operation. What was it, the Red Wing? And what was it, Roberts Ridge? Roberts Ridge. Do some research on that before you get all upset, and you will see some real corruption and cover-ups there. But anyway, I was watching this one yesterday, and he was kind of calling people out. He's saying, essentially, how dare you question these guys, Luttrell and Jocko and who's the other guy, Kyle, and I don't remember who the other one was. There's several out there. Rob O'Neill. Okay. How dare you question these guys just because they made mistakes? Everybody makes mistakes, and we shouldn't be airing our dirty laundry, and everybody makes mistakes, and just because they don't remember something the same way. These are not mistakes. These are not. I was so disappointed in this guy. I didn't have a high opinion of him anyway, but I was very disappointed. And I said, these are not mistakes. These are lies. These are lies. And here's the danger of the lie. These guys, they make movies about these guys, and for all I know, they railroaded the guys into making the movies or whatever, and they put them out there, and they get another generation of young men all excited about, I want to go be a whatever, you know? I remember when I was still teaching martial arts, and a young kid came to me. This was shortly after, this was before 9/11. Young kid came to me and says, I want to be a ranger. And I says, well, why do you want to be a ranger? Well, I don't know, I just want to be a ranger. I said, what do you know about the Rangers? And he said, well, and you know what he'd done? He had seen a movie. What was that one with Nicolas Cage? Played a Con Air. That was the name of it. And apparently the guy was supposedly an ex-ranger and was, I don't know. And then he did some cool moves and some fights. And all of a sudden this guy wants to be a ranger. And the thing is, if he'd go, and I said, that's stupid, man. I mean, so anyway, I talked him out of it. But if he'd been all hyped and he'd gone down the recruiting station, he would have been in. I don't think he'd ever made Rangers, that particular guy, but I had a lot of my students after 9/11 that joined up. A lot of them went special operations, and a lot of them got screwed up. So the danger of these things is that when they're hyped up, it pulls in a whole new generations of young people saying, I want to be this. I want to be this. It's propaganda. It's immoral. Well, you know, and it's nothing new. I mean, we've always known that movies during World War II, John Wayne and a bunch of other people, Jimmy Stewart, made a bunch of movies, you know, kind of getting the people on the side. And if you remember the old songs by Cohan, you know, that were, you know, Yankee Doodle Dandy, propaganda has always been used to drive the national spirit and to get the young people all involved. But when people make money off of this is what I'm talking about, the danger of false heroes. Just because somebody puts on a uniform doesn't make them a hero. And I mean, I'm from law enforcement. I knew plenty of guys that wore the uniform. Most of them weren't heroes. Now, I don't know, maybe they could have been, depending on the situation. You know, I have a certain definition of hero that might be different from yours. I don't know. But not everybody's a hero just because they put on. I don't care whether it's a military uniform, a police uniform, or a mechanic's uniform. Okay, a lot of people just doing their jobs. So to elevate these people as heroes, I think, serves a wrong purpose, and that's the danger. I would suggest, and so I share all these things with my kids. But anyway, this last guy that I told you I watched yesterday, and I don't. Well, I'll leave it there. He says nobody should be pulling. If you haven't been there, you don't understand, and you shouldn't be talking about it. That is exactly the problem. Okay, how often do we hear, well, you know, the cops ought to be policing themselves. Why don't other cops stand up and call out these bad cops? Which I fully agree. I fully agree. Maybe I'll tell my story about that sometime. Why doesn't the clergy police itself? Why do they hide? Right? They need to be the ones that police themselves, that clean it up, right? And not just police themselves, but not hide it. You see, when you're hiding, when you're covering stuff up, you're not taking care of it. You're just hiding it. How about the Boy Scouts? When they found out that there have been 80, 90,000, maybe more than that. Is it 800,000? I have no idea. A lot of child abuse cases within the Boy Scouts that the Boy Scouts hid. That's the problem. You should not hide this stuff. And it ought to see the light of day, and everybody should know it, especially in those cases to where so many people are exposed to being affected by them. And by that I mean the police, and I mean the Boy Scouts, and I mean the clergy, and I mean the military. Just because somebody's not in the military doesn't mean that they don't have a right to express any opinion they want to about it. I'm not going to come on and tell a guy that his pants are creased wrong, okay, or that he's got his ribbons in the wrong order. That's military stuff. But when it comes to right and wrong, moral, immoral, those aren't military issues. Those are moral issues. Those are issues that everybody shares an interest in. And so the reason that I bring this up is that as we are, I think, headed toward war, as we are headed towards a potential draft, and I know, I think I said this before, I've heard people say that they won't do it, can't do it, whatever. Hey, if they want to do it, they'll do it. They'll figure out a way. And when we're headed towards that, and then we hold up people as, we hold up false heroes. Now, there's plenty of real heroes out there. There are plenty of real heroes out there. You don't hear about them. You know why? Because they don't write books about them. They don't make movies about them, for the most part. for the most part, Audie Murphy, okay, yeah. Alvin York, sure, okay. But these things that happened most recently, look into them and you'll find out that they were not, the truth is not what you were all gung-ho about, probably. And it's important to realize this and find this stuff out. Oops, I got to go pick up my son from football. So those are my thoughts. Get ready. I would suggest that if you have kids approaching that age of selective service, that you take a real hard look at it, see what your position is. If you do not agree with your kids being drafted in, look at the laws. I'm not telling you to break the law. I'm not telling you to do anything. What I'm saying is there are certain exemptions. Now they've done away. Exemption is not the right word for it. What is it? One of you guys will know. Anyway, there's all sorts of classifications, right? And through World War II and all that, I'm not sure if it was the same during Vietnam. I don't think it was. I know there was a student deferment. There was different deferments. They've changed a lot of those. They've done away with most of them, from what I understand. But there still are. Look at and study that. If you don't think that it's right that your kids or grandkids should be scooped out of their lives where they're producing and they have got a great life ahead of them to go fight a rich man's war in somebody else's country, I would suggest that you look at that. Look at the law, because there are things that can be done. Okay, and you have to decide whether your first loyalty is to your family and the will of God or to a corrupt government. That's your decision. Okay. All right, I'm going to go pick up my son. I didn't tell you about my books. I've run out of books, but we're expecting to load in. The links to my books are down below on Amazon. By the way, and most of you know I'm in the process of copy editing book number 7. I believe there's going to be two more books in the Stonemont series as I look at plot development, as I look at storylines and things that have to be wrapped up. I think there's going to be 2 more after On Wings Like Eagles. And so if you want, that'll be available in the next month or so. But if you want the previous books, the links are down below. Amazon will get them to you quick. The Amazon link is down below. Or if you want to wait and get them directly from me, and I'll sign them for you and write a little note in there, and I love doing that. It's my preferred way of people buying my books is from me directly. But, if you want them fast, I'm still waiting on the load to come in. It'll be in a couple of weeks, and then I'll get them out to everybody who has ordered them. On Amazon, you can get them in paperback, Kindle, or Audible. So those links are down below. If you're not with us on Patreon, come join us over there. And I think that's going to do it. Y'all remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Keep in mind that some real challenges are coming our way, and you have to be prepared for them. You have to think about them ahead of time so that you're not just reacting when the time comes out of surprise. Okay? All right. You all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.